filing. That remains private, that nobody knows that you are objecting to it. So is it also okay that I do so simultaneously that I also publish it on my blog or on the website, and at the same time you do the objection? Is there any problem with
No, there is no problem with that. If you file a pre-grant opposition, you can talk about it. There is no such problem.
Even for the post-grant process, you can do that.
The pre-grant is just a representation. It's not like a matter is sub judice and you cannot really talk about it or discuss. It's a pre-grant representation. You're just telling them this is my objection, or you telling them prior art is this. You can come and you can just go and talk about it. That's not a problem at all. And whether we request a hearing usually, which is what doesn't come out, but these days once an order has been passed by the patent officer, they're also put up on the website as a public document, like the court orders are put up. But if you want to file, you can talk about it. You will look up websites, you can find out on different websites about different pre-grant oppositions which generic pharmaceutical companies like Cipla and Baxi have been filing. There are details out there, the patent numbers are indicated. Whatever goes on, the process between the applicant and the patent officer is something which is not made public until the last moment. When the patent is granted, then they put it up. Or at least PH Kurian is trying to get that process in place. But you can talk about it on your blog if you want.
We'll publish the pre-grant opposition to the Centricom RIM patent which we filed yesterday. It should be a useful template for 25(1)F attempts to oppose pre-grant the issuance of algorithm patents in India. It should become a very simple process, easy to undertake. You just fill in the blanks we've left in places and it should work for you.
Good afternoon. My name is Padmanabh Ramanujam. My area of interest is open source and my PhD area is also open source. I'm the Assistant Director of Center of Intellectual Property Rights, OPT in the Global University. I have two questions. The first question is, both the questions are of academic interest, I'm sorry. The first question is, we talk about the open source programmers. I think at least the literature, the amount of literature I have read, we still have the difficulty in understanding where does these programmers come from, what is the incentive for these programmers to sit and code, and why is that the people who contribute for this open source programming are all coming from one cultural background and not from all cultural backgrounds. This is one question. The second question is, you're talking about the patents, Indian Patent Act. You said that we don't have any patent protection for computer software program per se, but if you see the patent law as a totality, actually we are moving towards a product patent regime. In 2005 we amended the act, we introduced the product patent for medicines, and we have done one more very bad thing is section 3D, which says new use of existing substances. If you see these things, I'm very sure the patent law which is existing now is definitely going to change in the years to come. We are actually taking a product patent region wherein open source is completely opposite direction. We don't need to encourage patent protection. So these are two questions. I would.
Yeah, so let's take the first question. A place you might want to start is with the reports issued by the Open Source Observatory project of the European Commission. The primary researcher in which is Rishabh Ghosh, and which reported out of the University of Maastricht to the Commission over the course of the last 6 years. Rishabh's original work was with a sample of some 400,000 developers registered at SourceForge, merely one of the machine tool locations for production and distribution of free software. Rishabh's survey of SourceForge developers, which was a major part of the first open source observatory report, the raw data is published on the net. I'm sorry I don't have a URL for you, but if you send email, I'll send it back to you. It showed that the primary reasons for involvement with free software programming given by respondents were in the order of significance. 1, to have fun. 2, to improve the technical environment of myself, my colleagues, and my community. and 3, to improve my personal skills and expertise. Those are not, I think, terribly surprising. 25th was to confront the software monopoly. 28th was to grow rich. We're looking at the reasons why human beings create things. Because it's pleasant, because it's good for the people and their surroundings, and because it improves their ability to create, to exercise their skills. It's not, I think, terribly surprising unless you have very firmly accepted the belief that the only incentive to human intellectual activity is monetary payment. I should also point out that at this stage, of the 100 most commercially significant free software projects in the world, we estimate, it's only an estimate because it's very hard to control the boundaries of this inquiry, but we estimate that approximately 40% of the programmers working on the 100 most commercially important free software projects in the world are now being paid a salary to make their contributions to the projects in which they are working. This is a consequence of the process of making our software inevitable for everybody. I characterize what we have been trying to do, Richard and the others who were founders of the free software movement for the past 20 years, as make freedom, embed freedom everywhere on earth, turn freedom on. What is fundamentally now happening is that we have begun to succeed in embedding freedom everywhere on earth, and we're beginning to turn it on. One consequence of which is that the people who make freedom are getting paid to do it. To be really quite, sort of blunt about it, there are not as many free software programmers in the world as Google wants to employ. The real question is, are you any good at it? And what has happened is that people have not only improved their skills and made themselves visible, they have acquired very substantial material rewards for doing it. I don't mean substantial in the sense that they now, have wives they can put on the boards of directors of the largest entities in their countries, but they are making decent livings and they live comfortably and well. You ask about cultural point of origin, and I agree with you that that's a really interesting set of inquiries. When I come to India, I make people uncomfortable because I say exactly what I think, and I'm not supposed to do that. This is India. I should be polite. I should be indirect. I should be diplomatic. But that's okay. It's even worse when I'm in Japan, when I shouldn't do anything at all. Right? Expressiveness is the centerpiece of free software making. It's about doing something that you think needs doing by expressing your ideas in your own words. What I believe is really important is that facility in adopting, not using free software, but making free software, has a pretty direct correlation with encouragement of individual expressiveness and the autonomy of individual thinking. This is why when every child learns how to learn, not when every child learns how to press the button on the menu, what you're actually doing is creating activist citizens, activist expressors, activist creators. This is what Mishi meant, I think, when she says that the commons is an activist. It creates the experience of self-expression for people. Maybe they aren't poets and maybe they aren't composers of symphonies, but they are makers of programs. And that becomes a very important form of the expression of self. What I believe one might want to say about that is that, in fact, this is not a culture measured with that. It's not a place where you can't say what you mean. It's not a place where you're not allowed to speak up. It's actually a fine place for writing software. There's a lot of software being written. It's being written in a fairly regimented way. Somebody told you what to write, and they told you what you were going to be paid at the end of the day for each line, and you wrote it. But one more twist, just one more little twist, and freedom turns on. Do you want to say something about patent law? I think that's really the place you want to be, Teresa.
You're right that with the 2005 amendments, we did make some decisions which we don't agree with. But 3K is one. Our strategy about patent vesting is all about that. That's what mostly CIS has been talking and Knowledge Commons is talking. 3D, on the other hand, has been a great tool in our hands. And it was only probably, I think, 10 days back that a delegation of Pfizer and Novartis met the Prime Minister to talk about getting rid of the 3D. So I like 3D. Okay. And it's the same thing. It is how it is used or what the people who are on the other side are filing oppositions to get what they want for the commons as well as the civil society, which is important. That's the entire debate about. That's why this little path of the golden mean thing to satisfy one party and put per se out there is something which is difficult for us to digest, and we just, as we decide to get rid of it. You are an academician, I'm a lawyer, we can all work together and get this done.
Just one more comment. The movement to a product patenting system is not one which raises the issue for software. Note that product treatment under patent law for software is not a good idea. No patent theorist wants to do it. We're actually talking about a historically crossed path, right? It was clear from the film. The United States government moved its patent law from a products-only system to a products and processes system in the 1950s, and software found itself crawling in under the process rather than the product proposition. The Indian patent law, having started at the protection of industrial processes side and moving towards products, which actually means compositions of matter, which actually means pharmaceutical molecules, the direction of movement is away from danger to software. That doesn't mean I stop caring. I care about both of them. But it should be clear that what is happening here is primarily happening because Indian patent law has not covered the only other industry on earth that actually cares for patent law. If we were describing the historical structure of patent law, we would really be describing the decay of the utility of patent law. 20-year monopolies in return for complete disclosure of product composition is not an attractive way of doing business for almost all businesses in the world. 20 years is way too long. Complete public disclosure is way too much. The only two industries in the world that have not moved to trade secret protection of pretty much everything they do are IT and pharma. IT's reason for not leaving the patent system is they don't have to be specific and disclose. As everybody has pointed out, patent disclosures in the area of software are totally worthless, and what they really offer you is an opportunity to annex more of somebody else's real estate with your elbow while you're going for the fork. Pharma is primarily dedicated to the idea that molecules, things existing in the natural world, can be owned by somebody, and only patent law is ever going to allow it to happen, and only by stretching. So the movement towards product-based patenting is really a payoff to global pharmaceuticals, an industry we do have to do something about damn quick, but not about software. Right? There are two industries in the world, they need one each. If we get rid of either one of those two legs, the stool will fall over.
Thank you so much.